greetings. What did I say last time? Denizens, people all around of the internet. Welcome to another casual conversation with me, Carlz, the only space, as far as I know, where I take my ideas I thought previously in Spanish and I do my best to make them sound, to make them have sense in English. So it's pretty cold and like I have to apologize for using my VTuber form instead of a camera, Some days you just don't feel like being on camera. And this is one of those days. Despite the fact that I don't feel like, I don't know, sick or anything, I just, don't feel pretty enough next to Superman. So today I'm finally going like more current, right? Like talking about something relatively new. I think Superman has been out for like a couple of months by now. But anyways, I did my best during my Spanish version to do not say any spoilers about the movie. But it's getting harder. The more I think about it, the harder it gets. So I can't promise there won't be any spoilers, but I am gonna try to give not say the big stuff. Is there any like true big stuff in the movie now that I think about it? But anyways, of course I'm talking about Superman 2025. Do people call it like that? I don't know. Written and directed by James Gunn, right? Previously known for his extensive work at Marvel. And I'm gonna dive straight into like what matters the most to me about this movie. When I left the cinema after watching this movie, I had this weird feeling that I like the movie. And to this day, I like it. I mean, I need to see it again, like definitely. But I don't know when it's gonna come out in digital. But when I left the cinema, I liked the movie. But the more I thought about it, the less answers I had to the reason why. So, to me, approaching this movie had this like really big, important divide, like radical divide. And it was this obvious expectation that this movie is like the more official beginning of this DC extended, no, it's called DC Universe or Cinematic Universe, whatever, the movie thing about DC is making, right? Led by James Gunn himself. And when I saw the trailers, I saw like a million characters appearing on the trailers, and it was like crazy. Like, is this going to be an origin story? How are they gonna deal with all of these characters? And the more the movie went on, like the bigger it gets. This is a huge movie introducing Justice Society / League characters, relationships. Like this is no origin story. And what makes that complicated in my case is that I'm the one filling up the gaps, right? So I feel like I'm not the adequate person to judge this movie at many points because I fill up the gaps. For example, they don't even mention about Hawkgirl's background, right? She's just there, like or Mr. Terrific, he's just there, right? I know who they are. I know she has like infinite lives and whatever. I know Mr. Terrific is one of the most intelligent people in the DC universe. Like, the only one that gets an introduction is Green Lantern. And of course, the more I thought about how things go so fast in this movie, like the more I thought about how it's me filling up the gaps and thinking about how do people that have no idea who these characters are feel about them. And like one of the possible conclusions that I reached was that, and the one that I like the most, the one that I've been trying to think out of but haven't been able to, is that the more like the biggest strength of this movie is James Gunn's awareness of the historical context movie wise, particularly comic movie wise, he is inserted in. That basically means that he didn't give a fuck about making this an origin story, which if you have seen it, of course, it's not, right? But he did it so because he knew. That's why he chose Superman to begin this thing, right? And he knew that he didn't need to do an origin story, which is fascinating. It's fascinatingly that's a word, right? Fascinatingly, I don't know. Maybe I'm creating words. I'm that good at English now. He realized he didn't have to, and if you ask me, that's just a stroke of genius. He didn't have to. He doesn't. He realized that we live in a context where like everybody knows superhero movies, like everybody does, and he wrote this movie in a way which is so smart that didn't make the people have those questions. For example, like of course the biggest thing about the movie, like universe wise, well, there are two, but one of them is, as I mentioned recently, the other heroes, right? The Justice Gang, I think they call themselves jokingly in the movie, right? So if I put myself on it's in the shoes of somebody that has no idea who they are, do they really need to be explained who they are? Like, do I need to tell them, no, this is a justice of heroes, and like, and the more I think about it, the more I think that the answer is no. Even if we comic consumers know this, regular people don't, and they don't need to, because in a way, in a sense, they already know what they are like. Whether they watch or didn't watch Zack Snyder Justice League or whatever, like I don't think there's one person in this world that has like no awareness. I mean, of course I'm exaggerating, right? But there must be like almost no people in the world that has no awareness of these superheroes, how they band together, right? How they come together, and like which was one of the worst things about Justice League, right? That god awful Godsmack core of come together. But whatever, that's not the point. You don't need to do these things. And if you see it like that, it takes a huge weight of responsibility from a movie like this, like a huge one. And like these are big ass characters, and I also think it was intentional. I'm not sure, of course. I don't have James Gunn on speed dial, but I'm pretty sure it was intentional that the only one of the other heroes that sort of let you know a little bit of who they are was Green Lantern, because it's just that important, and they knew that the Lantern series is coming up like soon-ish, right? So Gunn's awareness of what he needed to do with this movie is beyond amazing. Then if you go right into the main characters, right? Like the Daily Planet crew, like everybody's there, like fucking Cat Grant and whatnot, right? Which is a character that I enjoyed like enormously in the CW Supergirl. But Jimmy Olsen, like I keep saying Barry White, but it's Perry White. These are like characters that if you utter their names to a comic fan, they're like, oh, he did this, he did that, he did that. But to a normal person who doesn't read comic and is not aware, they probably know Lois Lane. They might or may not know Jimmy Olsen, and they don't really need to know the rest. That's why there's even like some new guys in between, right? You already assume like who they are, whether they have importance or not. And even in the case of the most important ones, Gun only gives you like like the genesis of the character without going deep into an origin story narrative. For example, often Lois Lane gets caught up into this like I don't know if you could call it drama, but she gets caught into this like overachiever type of story arc, like she's really pushy, and like they end up always talking about her family past, right? Like the issues with her dad and whatnot. Like all of that comes into an origin story narrative, right? But what do we get here with Lois Lane? We get a Lois Lane who is thrown into the deep end immediately. Immediately, like we don't even really know if she's like the best, right? Going around like flexing her like what's the name of the journalist award thing, like the Pulitzer, right? Going around, I have so many Pulitzers, I'm the best. Like we don't need it. We don't need it. Even more so, we get her introduced immediately in relationship to Superman as a couple, right? Which was rather surprising if you ask me. Like for those who do not know the current state of the comics, right? Like the mainline DC comics have them married with one biological child and two adopted ones, right? So the family situation of Superman is already there. So instead of I don't say wasting, but it wouldn't be a waste. But instead of investing movie time into like, oh, let's go back to Smallville and to Clark and him learning and everything, and doing the same with Lois, let's put them right in the middle. You could say like the middle of the or the latter part, right? They're already a couple, right? They are already a couple. We don't need to know their backgrounds. All we need to know is that the fact that they are a couple is used to introduce one of the main storylines of the movie, and the storyline which I think is going to be the core of this phase 1 of Gunn's universe, right? Which is the meta-humans, which means superheroes for those who don't know, right? Which is the meta-humans' responsibility in society. Right? Superman interferes with political affairs of humans, and that just explodes into his interpersonal relationship, right? Explode into his role in society, his public views, and probably the most important, it explodes into introducing his arch nemesis, Lex Luthor, right? Played by the most wonderful Nicholas Hoult. That guy is the best. But whatever. Nosferatu. You get it there too, right? Like Lex Luthor is probably the worthiest character in the movie, like the more exposition based one. But you realize that they don't show you the beginning either, right? They don't show you his origins. Like you have some timelines where he grew up in Smallville, or like you have some timelines where they knew each other, like in others they didn't, or like famously known Lionel Luthor, his dad, like his mom. You have like a bunch of shit you could have thrown in, right? But Lex Luthor appears, and immediately what does he do? He is a tool to just go like, I hate this guy because he's a foreigner and he's meddling in our affairs. The rest is just like acting, right? Like projecting this anger and this sort of like frustration out of as a villain, right? Which he marvelously, is that how you pronounce that word? Whatever, you know what I mean, right? In a marvelous way. And you start realizing that as the movie goes on, that this is going to be the case. This is going to be the case. And there is a bunch of concepts in the movie that are simply not explained. And it's just amazing. Like Lex Luthor does this really funny exposition trip when he takes, and this is a spoiler, where he takes Superman into a prison, right? Like he built a pocket universe, he built clones, he built like literally he jump started like the whole thing. But you don't bat an eye at it. Like you don't really mind. You don't need explanation for all of this. Like freaking metamorph or whatever, right? You don't really need it. And it's funny because in other context, like these things would have taken so much time in the movie. For example, like they would have made a big deal or a big point about him, like having this evilish plan, right? Like we all, I mean, I hope we don't all of us, but like many of us remember uh, Zack Snyder's Lex Luthor plan, right? Jesse Eisenberg was great in that, but like he had like the most convoluted, like complicated, borderline dumb plan to get Superman. In this one, it's almost cartoonish, right? He's just like setting him up, like making him look bad, and that works in so many levels. Like when you see the sort of betrayal that Superman does, I always found really curious how the people immediately turn on Superman, like immediately in the movie. Like there's like a one person maybe. Oh yeah, the I don't want to mess up his nationality. Like is he like I don't want to say. Let's just say Middle Eastern, okay? So the point is, the movie moves in a really really fast-paced speed. So when Lex Luthor's sort of plan finally like turns the people of Metropolis against Superman, it seems like it happens instantly, which I found to be super curious. But looking back at it, is so smart, right? Because what does he do with every of these unexplained fast things that happen in Superman, right? Just makes the movie move way faster, first of all. And second of all, it does give the character the personality he wants him to have. What I mean by this is that this Superman is still fresh, it's still green, right? We had like a Superman without like wasting too much time at the beginning, because he doesn't need to. But we have a green Superman, we have an insecure Superman. Like, if it's any sign of the narrative he's going for, like, of course we had the trailers, right? In the trailers, what was the trailer? Like a beat up, broken Superman. So he did this really smart thing to make Superman's vulnerability to be not just one thing in the movie, right? Often you have like a big powerful superheroes and the plot of the movie is like, oh, I found his weakness, right? But here we know it's kryptonite, we know he comes and goes, and like he never feels like overpowered in this movie, which basically makes it so that even though it's not an origin story, you have a vulnerable Superman, you have an insecure Superman, which makes him seem young, which makes him seem like growing, right? And that just makes him like a better type of character, a funnier type of character. And in this point, I do have like a really contrasting idea between comics and live action, right? Of course, I like Superman, right? Like who doesn't, right? But to me, all the best Superman stories are this concept of like not unstoppable force, but like somebody trying to bring down this brick of walls, which is unmovable, right? Which is like what usually Superman represents in the DC universe, right? Like I love when they say that the Trinity, which is Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, is like the heart, the brain, and like the soul. I think it is. Yeah, like it might sounds a little bit sexist, but like Wonder Woman is the feelings, Batman, of course, is the brains, and Superman is the values, right? So, for example, like I think it was Joshua Williamson's last run on Superman when Superman was in the war world, right? Classic Superman story. Like Superman gets slightly depowered, right? He's cornered, right? And his values or him as a representation of values get challenged, right? Oh, you are against the wall. What are you gonna do? Like, are you gonna still like preaching truth and justice? Like, how do you cope with that? To me, those are the best Superman stories, even though like they might be the same ones for like 20 fucking 30 years. Like, that is the imagination and the emotion I always enjoyed about the character. Like, how does someone like hold his values or like upholds, that's the word, upholds his values to a fault, right? So that constant contrast between immovable values and vulnerability is what makes the character to me. Like doing that concept well, making him vulnerable without just being like, okay, you're just gonna die, or I'm just gonna get some new fucking kryptonite that's gonna make you vulnerable. That is not the vulnerability you want, right? The vulnerability you want is that the one of values, that the one of the mind, you could say it in a way. And that's precisely the one they do in this movie, but in a more like subtle way. Because at the end of the day, this Superman doesn't really focus on what he did, right? So he did interrupt the politically between two countries. He did meddle, right? But he doesn't go into like a big speech about it, which makes me think that this is going to be the main issue going forward in the current state of the DC movies, right? He doesn't explain his action, he just goes and do it. But in a really James Gunn-ish way, he crams as I said, this value aspect into a visual representation in the movie and into an answer to the movie's conflict, right? He could have easily had like, well, I'm a sucker for the relationship between Clark and his Earth parents, right? But the way they do it in this movie is so interesting because it's so short. It's so like I don't know, like so brief. We have the whole story arc in the movie where he is following the values of a video his Krypton parents left for him, right? Of course, in the end, the big discovery, spoilers, is that his true values are the ones he learned on Earth. But you don't get this in a big speech, right? Or like in a big interaction. All it happens in probably one of the best scenes in the movie is that his dad, his Earth dad, says like, "I'm proud of you, son, for being who you are. Like I'm just proud." And that whole scene, and of course the end credits, that one I'm not gonna spoil because it's really special. That sort of shows you that Gunn has this vision, this sort of like wonderful way of looking at these things, of showing you less out of the awareness of the lack of need of showing you more, and like choosing exactly what he wants you to show. I mean, what he wants you to see. right? And as I said at the beginning, these are the ramblings of someone that doesn't really know if he liked the movie. If you had caught up from what I've been saying, like, it was me, the one feeling in my mind, filling in the gaps in between, like the broader comic book implied plot lines, right? And I enjoy Superman stories that challenge him, like in a value manner, like in a way that it's probably more strong or convoluted. But the more I think about it, the more I sort of remember this all type of, how can you say, like a fun place to see these movies. And it often gets really complicated. It's like, I don't want to say like you can't stop being a nerd or something like that, right? Like, you can help your brain to think whatever like things go through your mind, but like and I don't want to say that the movie is dumb or anything like that, or like, oh, it's so simple, or like, no, I don't want to say that. But you come to realize that at some point, a good craftsperson, right, a good storyteller of these characters and like in general narratives of comic and superheroes, a good one knows exactly how far to push. And it should have been at like a given with Gunn, given his previous work, especially in Guardians, right? Looking back at Guardians, Volume 1, right? It's like nobody knew these characters. Like, nobody knew about them. Gotta be honest. Like, even if you were a big Marvel follower, I doubt there was this. I mean, there's probably is a couple of people like, no, like Star-Lord is my favorite character. I've been following him forever and everything. Sure, that might be your right, but he did the same with Guardians. Like, I don't need to show you like really long and drawn out origin stories. Like, this is just a bunch of misfit characters. They're fun, and like they shoot, they talk funny, right? They like 70s music, like, that's it. And if you think back to, at least when I think back at Guardians Volume 1, all I can think is just like pure joy and fun. Like, it was uninterrupted, and when the movie ended, you were like, okay, like, who was Gamora? Oh yeah, I saw her here, and like, oh yeah, oh, and Rocket, oh yeah, I remember. Like, that happened after the movie, and I really begin to think that he did the same here. As I said, in a stroke of genius, he realized that he didn't need to waste time. Let's just say it, right? He didn't need to waste time in like making a big deal about these characters. It might happen later, right? It might happen later. We already know they're gonna do a Lanterns thing, right? It might happen later. Who knows? But you really don't have to do it. Like, in the big spectrum of things, what does this mean for me and my relationship with the movie in general? Is the realization that I'm in a really, really similar headspace to this reality as Gun is. Like, as I said, you can't really stop being a nerd, but you can certainly stop like paying too much attention or worrying too much for this iteration of the characters and the stories. Right? It's like, you can keep reading the comics and like just be happy and just keep reading the comics and everything that happens there, like no problem, right? But you come to these movies and you expect a show that is fun, that is fast, and that is like full of heart, which is something that many of the the latest Marvel things have not achieved, right? They're slow. They're like the complete opposite. Slow, not fun, and without heart. I'm talking I'm thinking about, like, I don't know, Secret Invasion, for example. And I think that's why you can see the same pattern in the success or like lack thereof of Thunderbolts slash the New Avengers, right? I might have to do an episode on that. But the New Avengers is a movie that starts on the third act. Like literally takes no time in doing anything. It's just I throw this bunch of characters. Okay, this is the conflict they need to resolve. Go. And then the whole movie is them resolving this conflict that, as I say, it's beginning in the end, right? It's already them being trapped and everything. So this trend in hero movies and narratives, it's really interesting. It's really quite something. Like writers and creators need to take advantage of the normalization of superheroes. They have to, so they can focus on fun and colors, like in Superman. Like this is a really colorful movie. It's pretty to watch, and of course it's intentional, right? Of course it is. Or like really heartwarming, like the New Avengers, right? Like spoilers, like that movie ends up with them hugging. Like that is the that is the big, like, sort of like I don't know, laser beam at the end, the infinite stones or whatever. Like they end up hugging. It's heart, is like merriment, it's like bright colors, like well, I have to say, like, at some points I didn't really enjoy the action in Superman. That might be unless I think action wise, Superman is one of those characters that is really hard to make fun, because it's just him like flying around punching shit, right? So it's like sometimes the fights could get a little bit exhausting, but at the same time they were like just enough. Like they would be interrupted like at just exact point without getting like too boring, which is not the same that you can say for Man of Steel, right? I'm not gonna talk about Man of Steel, even though I don't hate it. But anyways, like, sort of bringing the whole thing together, right? I guess what I liked about the movie is that it showed me that not only as a consumer but also as a creator, you can like not separate, that's too extreme, like, but like take a distance between the incredibly thick and rich tapestry of superheroes and like having, like, how long is this movie? Like 2 hours, probably 2 hours, and having a 2 hour movie that is no strings attached, ironically, because it has plenty, right? But somehow manages to be no strings attached and to just drive this one point straight into your head, like with no issues whatsoever, right? This is a world with metahumans, and they are interfering with regular society. That is the point. That is the main point. It's a great point. It's accurate. It's representative. It's current. It's a great point. What do I do with this? I give you a bunch of characters. I give you a bunch of action. I give you a bunch of relationships, but none of them overcome this point, because I'm such a good writer that I don't take the attention out of it at any point, right? And ultimately, it's a really daring like a point of start. Like it really is. It really is. You can't go back, sis, for this like a big ass statement. This is another spoiler of the movie, which I don't think changes much. But of course, in the end, they end up accepting the fact that they are gonna interfere with regular society's issues. And if you think about it, that is one challenging idea. It has happened in the comics before, like especially with Superman, right? Like he's been fighting with like Amanda Waller and those sort of people like for like what, best part of 30 years. So when the subject is so important, like so hard hitting, it's really hard to say, okay, this is just a shallow movie, even though it doesn't take time to create a multiverse of characters and like give you the background of them all. You already know that this movie does get deep and end up in this really brilliant middle point of being like uncompromised with the source material, but challenging to our current ideals or what we want to see in these movies. As I said before, right? Even though the movie doesn't take this extreme approach to Superman, as I said, like I'm gonna challenge your values in an extreme way. Even though it's not that extreme, that point is still there. So in a way, by writing this movie the way they did, you can seep into all of the things you like about the characters, about comic book movies, about action movies, right? It has the heart, it has the complications, it had the relationships. It's a great revelation, if I can say so. To me, it's a great revelation. It was even like one that made me look back into New Avengers and see this same type of narrative. So without talking about the great performances or like visually, well, I have talked how the direction of the movie makes it feel like fast and fun, right? Without talking all of that, I'm talking about a new state in superhero movies, a new way of enjoying them, a new way of approaching them, thinking about them. And I guess he did it, right? As they say in Jurassic Park, the son of a bitch, he did it. And here I'm talking about James Gunn, right? Like, doesn't have that Marvel thing at the beginning, right? Like, oh, like what's coming next, or like, oh man, like, I need to know immediately who's gonna appear, like the new villain and everything, blah blah blah. The movie showed you that we're not living in that age anymore. The next whatever stone or the next universe, we're not living in that age anymore. We're living in the age of heroes. You can put it in a cheesy way. We are living in an age of heroes. So we don't really need to create this universe. It's already there. I just need to tell you the more interesting stories in the most fun way that I can, and that is something that Superman does super well. Do I love this movie? Ironically, after all of this, I'm not sure. I need to rewatch it. Do I love this movie? I don't know. Do I think it's great? Yes. But I think its biggest sort of kind of like thing is the point that I have been trying to make, which is this example of a new state of superhero movies and narratives in like mass media beyond comics, which to me is all good and dandy. I'm really looking forward to what's coming up next in DC, and it's not related to Infinity Gems or anything. Just the mere concept introduced by this leading movie opener for the DC cinematic universe that asks this huge and ginormous question of what is metahuman responsibility in human society. That in some way it's even more exciting than Infinity Gems or so. And if James Gunn has anything to say about it, it's gonna be fast, fun, cute, and full of heart. So I'm almost leaning to say that I love the movie, but I won't say it because when I love the movie, if anyone has the pleasure of listening to me talk about movies that I love, it gets a little bit different, right? But anyways, that is Superman. Looking forward to watch it again, see what comes out of the whole thing, and well, who knows? Maybe we'll get like a who could be Richard Pryor for now, like all of these crazy ass comedians. There's no Richard Pryor anymore. So Will Smith, whoops, bad decision. I don't know. Looking forward to what comes next, but it won't take my my sleep away. So I could live happy and easy talking about a next movie for next week. That's my time, and that is me signing off until next week when I really want to talk about a movie that I really love so we can see the difference. Okay? Thank you all for listening and having a blast. Have yourself a super day. Bye bye.